Hey, hi everyone. So today we are going to look into an important topic in terms of software engineering, right? So we all would have theoretically studied about code, how to code, but what if your code looks something like this? So what do you understand from this code? Okay, so let me read line by line, right? So you have a function named P which accepts two inputs, and these inputs are performing some mathematical calculation, right? And you also have a try except block wherein you are doing some validation. So if your inputs are not within the expected range of 0 and 100, then you are going to print an error, right? And if any of the code went wrong inside the try block, you are going to print saying something is wrong. So do you think this code is useful? Even though it can pass the test case, even though it can help solve the problem, if a new person is going to look into this code, do you think the new person will understand the code? No, right? Even let's say I have coded this, right? If I'm going to look into this code after let's say 2 months or 3 months, even this code is not going to be help me understand what I did, right? So this is a key concept. So whenever you are in industry, right, and you focus on working in a collaborative project, right? Then if you are going to code this way, this is not going to help your teammates as well. They are not going to understand your work, so they can't leverage whatever useful things you have contributed. So so let's see what are the key problems are, right? So you see an ambiguous function name being used. So if you just use a character like P or whatever, a single character, this is not going to be useful for anyone to understand what is the purpose of that function, right? So even though Python accepts, allows you to use these kind of naming convention, right? But still it doesn't make sense for a fellow human to understand or even a fellow LLM to understand what task you're going to do. And the next problem is unclear variable names, right? Again, same issue can be, whatever the function name has followed, almost the same issue is there here as well. Your variable names, even though Python allows you to use A, B, or whatever, but this doesn't make sense for a programmer who reads another programmer who reads this, right? And usually, whenever you create a function, it's always recommended to come up with a doc string which explains the purpose of the function. And this function doesn't have that as well, right? So it becomes difficult for someone again new to understand what is happening in this code. And you also have a except block. The except block is very much helpful if it is focused on a specific error, right? In this case, if you just put an except without introducing the actual error which it needs to capture, still except works. Except will works. Whatever error happens inside, it will work, but it doesn't show why the program failed, and that is a problem as well, right? So to sum up all this, right? This is a hard to follow code. It's difficult for you to understand the code, even though you can understand. Maybe you have to spend 10 minutes, pass some inputs, and see how the output behaves. So this program is cognitively strained for you, right? So it becomes difficult for someone who's going to read this program. Maybe if they are not in good mood, they are going to skip to understand this program, right? So this process or this kind of uh, concept is called as cognitive strain. Then how to counter it, right? How to so let's look into this code, right? The same code, if I have to focus on the readability of the code, right? Or if I care a lot about people who are going to look into my code and want to use my code, then I'll be focusing on improving the cognitive ease here, right? So we will see what that term cognitive ease in next slide. But let's see the difference between the previous code and this code. you clearly see this code as a better function name, right? So this function name is enough for a person who reads this code, right? So what's going to happen in this code? So it is going to calculate discounted price for you. So for that, it accepts two different inputs. One is the price and the other one is the discount. So now it makes sense, right? So now it makes sense. It gives some hint of what's going to happen within the code. Even though people can name the function whatever way they want, but still it doesn't guarantee that the function will work the way it is named, right? So it's always good to uh, read the next part, which is nothing but the documentation. Now let's check the documentation. See the doc string I meant. So here it says the purpose of this function, it is to calculate the discounted price, and it accepts two arguments, price and discount. So if in the earlier code, right? So in the earlier version, we just accepted two. Again, we accepted the same two different variables, but we don't know what is the purpose of those variables. What is the data type of those variables? And these inputs like price as is nothing but a float data type, and discount is also a float data type with some a description of what that variable is. This is going to help you a lot, right? And just see how cool it is, right? So you could see people writing code more than 70 characters, right? So even that is cognitive strain. So you would have seen people writing SQL code or Python code or whatever. If it is going to make you, go through line by line and you have to tilt your head from left to right, that is going to increase the cognitive strain as well, right? So if you are going to follow to the simple pepage standards of Python, right, wherein if you keep your code within the 70 line spaces, this is going to help the people who's going to read your program. And who knows, right? So if in case of any issues in your code, cognitively ease code will help you figure out the bugs way quicker than cognitive strain code. So it's always important to follow pepage standards. So these are not uh, you know boring stuff to read, right? So these are fundamental stuff, and most of the great companies in the world and great programmers in the world follow this, right? So choose a best IDE. So you have PyCharm, VS Code. This will automatically help you to follow the pepage standards and pylint your code, right? Pylint is a tool which in Python which will help you to give you a score for your code. And then as a fellow human, be empathetic about who is going to read your code. So if you think in that way, I think you will come up with a better uh, cognitively ease code. So just look at this code, right? How pleasant it is to read this code compared to this code. Okay? So that is what I wanted to say in this video. Thank you. So if you like this channel, please subscribe it. And if you find this video is very useful to you, not very, even slightly useful to you, please share it with your friends, well wishers, whoever you find this video might benefit. Thank you.